Welcome to our show, everyone. I'm very excited you're here for your miracle resource. This is a special show today because we're going to go over some things that I get a lot of questions about. I get questions from people who own businesses and they say, hey, I'm just not getting the clients that I want to get. Even people who do side hustle businesses, that they feel like they're asking their friends and family, but they're not connecting to the right people. So that's what we're going to talk about today. How do you win the clients that you want using your brand and communicating what you want? So your brand is how you build loyalty and win the clients you desire. So we'll talk about it. And again, this is based on all of the questions that you have asked me and you've asked me to share. So I'm going to go to our next slide. Now, what do you communicate? Let's spend just a moment here. We sometimes believe that we communicate about our product and how great it is, and we don't understand why people just won't buy it and they won't engage with us. Well, let's take a look at the next slide. We have to be honest about what we communicate. We need brand ambassadors. We need a team that will help us. We need a one voice kit. So today we're going to talk about the keywords that you'll say. We need social media spies, and you need to make sure that you're spying on social media to understand and really know what your client wants. Then we'll talk about the culture that you give off when you talk about your product or service. We'll talk about media coverage and how to win that client. So I want to share with each one of you that as we go through this journey today and talk about all of these items, I'd like to go to our next slide, which focuses a little bit more on what you have to do. This is what I do every day. So join me for doing my job for the day. That is, people ask me to brand things. So I'm going to ask you to join me in branding America. What comes to your mind? When you think about America, you might think about American education, American pride. You might think about the American worker, or you might think about the freedom in America. America's a lot of things. So think about your brand. It's a lot of things. It does a lot of things. The products and service and who you are is a lot of things. It's not just one thing. So as we look at our next slide, here's the key. You want to listen to what you hear from your customers. The greatest strength, the greatest weakness. Sometimes they're the same thing. So I want to share with you, one of the things I started with when I started Miracle Resources in 2003 was we will help everyone. We're going to help everybody. Well, that's a great strength, but can also be a great weakness. One of the reasons why is because you need to focus in on who exactly is your client and who you want to work with. So sometimes what you're communicating you think is a great strength, but it could be a great weakness. So you have to zero in on who is your customer, who do you really want to work with. And in the next slide, we share with you a little bit more about that. This is a real estate example. This is a house that my husband and I actually saw. When you look through the windows, you could see the lake. It's right on Lake Erie. When people walked into this house, they said one word, and that is amazing. When you walked in this house, it went up to the second floor, and so it was just this gorgeous, gorgeous view of the lake. Well, the realtor was smart enough to listen. What is it that people say when they walked in that front door? And the word was amazing. So now I want you to think about your clients. What did they say about you? They say probably better stuff about you than you would say about yourself. So let's think about that just for a moment. What is it that clients say when they work with you? What is it about you that helps them? So let's take a side hustle just as an example. Someone who sells a makeup product. They may say, oh, I love all this makeup, and you're so worried as pushing this product about all the things it does. But listen to your clients. It might be one thing that it does that they want. Are you really listening to your clients? That's how you zero in on who your perfect client is. So let's take a look at the next slide. When we talk about your brand, now this slide I'm going to leave up just for a little bit longer. This slide talks about if the world was coming at you asking your opinion about something, what would you say? What's the one thing that is so important to you? So example, if I had 1 million cameras in my face, I would talk about how we need to find our voice, how we need to be inquisitive, how we need to be curious about things, how we need to research before we communicate. That's my brand. So under pressure, a bunch of people talking to you and asking you questions, what would you say? Now, as you look at this slide, and I want to stay here just for a moment, here's the concern that most people have, is they say, I don't know what I would say. But we get on social media, and every day we could have a million cameras in front of us. We post the wrong thing, it goes viral. So what I'm asking you to think about is not a tough question. When you go onto social media and you post, well, it could go viral. So we'll take it to the next slide. And that is to think about what we say or think. That's not what defines us. Jane Austen said it best. It's about what we do. So let's go back, stay on the slide, but let's go back to that makeup person who's selling makeup. If they're selling makeup and they're doing tutorials and they're really helping their client with how to use the product and they're doing all these videos, and they may even during prom season or wedding season help some brides and help some of the prom guests. Well, what that would do is that would be an action. So think about an action you can take to help communicate your brand and what you do. That will attract the right client. In our next slide, we focus a little bit more on those brand ambassadors that I mentioned earlier. Now, when Jim Trussell was at the University of Akron, he started an app that was built by students. The girl on the far right of your screen is my daughter, Kayla. She was one of the brand ambassadors. Why are we not picking brand ambassadors, pretty much like what Jim did, and asking people, hey, what do you think of this app? And then engaging them in conversation. Those brand ambassadors on social media and beyond are people that maybe you don't even pay. They're people who will volunteer to talk about your product because they love it. But if we never ask people to do that, they won't. So we need to engage brand ambassadors. And in our next slide, we talk even deeper about the words that you choose, the key words that describe your product. Do you remember when I showed you the slide of the house and it said amazing? What are the key words that describe your service or your product? Then I have FAQ, which is frequently asked questions. You know that people are going to ask these questions, so you might as well put it out there. My last name is Miracle. People ask me all the time if it's a stage name. I know it's going to come up. And one of the things I do is when I talk a little bit before I even say my name. So I just want to say to you, each one of us has key words that we need to communicate in our brand, but we also have frequently asked questions. So don't be afraid when people ask them. They're going to ask them. Be ready with an answer. In our next slide, we focus a little bit more on the protection of the brand. Now, when we talk about protecting the brand, you need to, again, look at who your competitors are on social media, but be a social media spy. Here's an example. My company provides training, and when things are bad in the workplace, one of the things we talk about is we spend time and we say, what happened at work today? And people will tell us about communication problems, team problems. And in the slide it said GA, which means Google Alerts. Set Google Alerts. If you want to be able to find your client, one of the ways that you do that is set Google Alerts. Now, a Google Alert is easily set by going to Google. You might create it as a news alert or an alert. You can research and find anything. Now, if you set it too broad, you'll get too much information. So if you set it for marketing, that's too big. But if you say marketing for healthcare, then you've further defined it. Now think about your client. What are they looking at? What are they reading? What are they Googling? If you have a Google Alert set, you find that and you can easily find them. So let's go to our next slide where we talk a little bit more about that protection. I'm going to leave this one up for a little bit. This is our office in Akron, Ohio. Now, this was an old area. My husband and I bought the building, and then we rebuilt this section. This was an old section, and we wanted to decorate it so it was beautiful. But sadly, a competitor shared this picture and said, wow, Miracle Resources charges a ton of money. Now, see where it says PU? That means positive update. I could have gotten mad and said, well, that's not true. I could have lashed out at the competitor, but instead I did a positive update. I shared a discounted rate for the month of December when that came out, that negativity came out. And I had more people contact me because they saw our discounted rate, and they also understood that we have never overcharged on certain items. We put the pricing right out there. We never slashed the competitor, but instead we gave an update and shared, no, this is actually what we charge. And we gave a discount. So as we move on to the next slide, let me let you know that sometimes problems leads to products. So the example that I gave you of the positive update, when someone lashed out and said our prices were very high, and I came back with a positive update. Sometimes a problem to product is a new revenue stream. I want to stay on the slide just for a little bit longer. When we look at problems that happen for us as a company, Miracle Resources, doing marketing and public relations, we found that we would create an amazing campaign for a client, but the employees weren't engaged in that process. We were just working with the C-suite, the chief executive. And what we realized was we need training to help people communicate the services of the campaign. So that new revenue stream became our training program. So instead of just going in and doing marketing and telling the employees, here's what the campaign is, we engaged them in the training program. And the reason that I have those irises in the picture is sometimes we laser in on what seems easy, but I want you to know that you've got to be willing to work on things that are difficult. I cropped this picture. If you were to see the whole picture, you would see that I took this in Cleveland, this picture. It's between a crack house and a KFC. I'm not kidding. These irises grew and made beauty in a place that is very blight, in a very blighted area. And that's just like problem to product. Sometimes you can create beauty, create something amazing in a difficult situation. So when you're looking for clients, don't shy away from problems. That's when they really need you. So think about what problem you solve, how you can make it easy for people to understand how to work with you and how they help you. Now, as we move into our final slides, I want to tell you what's going on with inquisitive culture. My book, Inquisitive Culture, is coming out in 2020. And I want to stay on this slide just for a moment because this is what really will win you clients and help you express your brand. Do you make people feel significant? Sometimes we send a very quick email that says, I'll meet you at 5 o'clock. But if we say, and we want to make someone feel significant, we say, I'm looking forward to seeing you at 5 o'clock. Is there anything that you need? Could I pick up anything for you? They feel significant. They feel important. The sense of certainty was also engaged when I talked about that email, a certainty that I am saying I will meet you at 5 o'clock. We as well through our communication need to show how we grow together. There has to be growth. That means that there's listening and being inquisitive, curious about what someone's doing, not prying, not meddling, but making sure the right person is asking the right question at the right time. We also show contribution with an inquisitive culture. When we look at training a team of people that surround your product or your brand, those brand ambassadors, we all show contribution, but we have to work together. The next one is love and connection, and that might seem kind of weird to you. What do you mean in the business setting love? It may mean that loving the product and having connection to it means doing those video tutorials or letting people know where you're speaking or engaging with them so they can connect to you. Recently, Miracle Resources has joined two chambers, the Fairlawn and Wasler Chamber. This is a deeper connection for us, and we're already loving it. To have an inquisitive culture means going deep in those relationships, but it also means variety. You have to have variety. I don't always just text people. I may visit them, email them. I do a lot of FaceTime with people, especially people who DM me. They'll write me and say, hey, I saw this show. I want to talk with you more about inquisitive culture and communication. We're going to do some FaceTime. What does that build? It builds trust. Many times people are upset because they don't have the clients that they want. They have trouble communicating their brand. And it could be a trust factor. People just don't know enough about you. Now, as we move on to the next slide, I'm not asking you to be a shameless self-promoter. But what I am asking you to do is share what you have. So why does publicity matter? We know that there's companies that do great work, but they really don't share much with the media. Now, as a member of the media, when I first graduated from college, I wrote for a newspaper, I interned at TV5. It was clear to me I wanted to own a public relations firm and feed media from the clients that I serve. Now, I will work with reporters and they'll say, hey, do you have anything today? They'll write me, is there anything going on? They're looking for those beautiful stories that you may have with your clients and your company. Many times I will meet a business that's helped a lot for a charity. They've never shared that. They have a big event that they give out items for Christmas for people in need. They never share that. Why not? Media needs those stories. So that's where the publicity comes in. And in our next slide, one of the pieces for you to win, I want to be honest with you about how we grew the company. Many people will say 16 years in business, how did you make it through the tough economy? I'm going to leave this slide up just for a little bit. It was a horrific 2007, 2008 for everyone, especially small business owners. But the clients that stayed with us, and there were some that had to go because of the income was less for them coming in. They lost grants, they lost business as well because it was a really, really difficult financial crisis. But when we started working with the Cleveland Clinic, it says LR because what we did was a lead that was given to us then became a referral. It was a lead and then someone was willing to step up because we had done work before and they knew we were a perfect fit. And it was really great. We were able to get in and do a lot of work. The S is social. There was a lot of social that happened. A lot of the people that I knew that were working with the clinic that knew Miracle Resources work were able to pull us in. So that's how we got in and that's how we stayed. The next one is the American Red Cross. We wanted to work with them. We met them through networking, which everyone says networking is dead. That's a lie. The L also stands for LinkedIn because we did get through LinkedIn. And we also had what I'll call a champion. A champion is like a brand ambassador, someone who will refer you. Ours was Laura Fry. That's why the LF is there. Well, Laura did because we had networked and we had done work for her before. When she came to the Red Cross, she brought us on. And then we went on to another nonprofit she worked with and helped her there. How does this happen? It's because people know you. You network, you research to find out more, you use leads, you use referrals to get in. The last one is Dunkin'. When we worked with Dunkin' Donuts, it was, again, a LinkedIn connection that got us in. Now, I did my homework and did my research. So when I met with our counterpart at Dunkin', I had the perfect coffee, the perfect donut, and had all the information that I knew this contact wanted to know. Now, where did I find that? Looking at LinkedIn profile, researching the person. So again, if you're not willing to do the research, then you don't really want the client. So let's talk about that. If you really want the client and you really want to get the business, or you wonder, why is this person not working with me? Maybe you have a side hustle and you've reached out to somebody and you say, well, why won't this person buy my product? It probably means you don't know enough about them. Maybe they're not the perfect client for you. Finding the perfect client means doing the research, going through the LinkedIn profile, connecting, getting a referral. We talked about champions today. So if you really want to work with the right people, you've got to be able to do the research. And today we've talked about a lot of information. You can always follow up with me, Katherine Miracle on Facebook, Miracle Resources on Facebook. I'm available even through LinkedIn, and I'm pretty easy to find if you Google me. So just know we are here to help you grow your brand, your team, and your revenue. So let's take a look at what's upcoming for Miracle Resources, and that is our book club. We really want you to join our book club. We've had so much fun with it. You can pick up these books at any time, and as you read through them, we'll be talking about them more and more. And I want you to know, no matter when you get these books, the one on your right would be Discovering Your Dawn, and that is the orange book. That is to unlock your potential. Then Your Strategic Personal Brand, that book will help you to, again, grow your brand, not in a shameless self-promotion, more of finding out what's you and what you want. Now, as we wrap up today's show, I want you to know that we are always here to give you the help that you need in the niches of branding, team building, and revenue building. And I wish you the greatest success, and thank you for joining us for your Miracle Resource.